Yes, sir, ladies and gents. And once again, we are back, rooted in sports, live Tuesday nights, man. Glad to be back. Kenneth Tiberius, excuse me. He'll be on in just a second. But we're gonna go ahead and get going, get the show started. We got a lot to get into today. Um, I'm probably gonna jump right into the NBA in particular, the big news in the NBA with the Brooklyn Nets firing Steve Nash and possibly hiring Ime Udoka. So I'm gonna jump right into that in a second. We also got a ton of NFL to get to. Today was the NFL trade deadline. A slew of moves went down today, so we're gonna definitely jump into that. I'm really interested to see what King Tiberius had to think about that. So it's gonna be a really, really, really great show. A little Week 8 NFL recap, Week 9 predictions. It's gonna be an awesome, awesome show today, jam packed. So yeah, we gonna go ahead and get into it, man. Should be a real fun show today. So let's do it. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Once again, it's gonna be an awesome, awesome, awesome show today. Good evening. Thank you, Bo. Man, you know what? We gonna get to that. You're welcome, first of all, and we're gonna get to that in a second. For those who don't know, Bo, who happens to be a huge Baltimore Ravens fan, is speaking of the deal with the Chicago Bears and the Baltimore Ravens sending linebacker Roquan Smith to the Baltimore Ravens for, I believe, a second rounder and a fifth rounder. So that's what he's thanking me for. He knows I'm a big Bears fan. He's a big Ravens fan. So, Bo, you're welcome. But anyway, like I said, man, we're gonna jump right into today's huge NBA news, which is the Brooklyn Nets parting ways with Coach Steve Nash after just 7 games into the season. They got out to a really slow start. They won. They actually won last night to improve to 2-5, I believe. But they say it was a mutual agreement that they parted ways with Steve Nash, and now by all reports, they'll be hiring suspended head coach Ime Udoka. So, first off, I think that this was a move to really satisfy their superstar. And I mean, one, Kevin Durant. If you remember in the offseason, he requested either A, to be traded, or B, for Steve Nash and GM Sean Marks to be replaced. And I guess he got, at this moment, he's got, one of those things done with Steve Nash being replaced. I don't think Steve Nash was a terrible coach. However, I just don't think he was the coach to get this job done. He had at one time he had 3 huge personalities, if you include James Harden, along with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, who are still on the team. But at one time he had 3 huge egos, you can argue 3 of the top 10 or 15 players in the league on this team. And this was his first head coaching job ever. So the pressure was on immediately. And I will say this, um, the odds were kind of against him. And I say that because I'll speak to the big 3 in particular when they actually had Kyrie, KD, and James Harden on their roster. They played a very minimal amount of games together. You couple that with the fact that Kevin Durant was kind of in and out with various injuries. You also add to the fact that, and speaking to last year, Kyrie Irving missed more than half the season because of him choosing not to be vaccinated and because of the specific vaccine mandates that they had there in Brooklyn, or the rules that they had as far as him being able to play in NBA games. So that was a sacrifice that he wasn't necessarily willing to make, and it ended up kind of hurting the team. So I will say that Steve Nash, he was kind of dealt a little bit of a raw deal. However, I mean, I put it like this, this team, for all the talent that they have offensively, they really, really, really lack a defensive identity. There's really just a complete lack of effort on that end. And it has been that way since Steve Nash has been there. And that's something, and that's a finger that I guess can be pointed directly at him. Moving forward now, with the potential hiring of Ime Udoka, if we don't know anything else, we know that an Ime Udoka-led team is going to defend. Prime example, you can just look at the Boston Celtics last year after they got out to a slow start. As we get King Tiberius in here, what's going on, bro? Oh, we can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Oh, I said, what's up? What's up, brother? How you doing?
I can't call it, man. I'm extremely excited about this show, man. And I was just kind of rambling on. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I was just kind of rambling about the Brooklyn Nets and obviously them letting go of Steve Nash and the potential hire of one Ime Udoka. And I was just saying, I kind of mentioned some of the things with Steve Nash, some of his kind of downfalls. And then I also I was getting into the fact that in potentially hiring Ime Udoka, one thing that we know is that he's going to hang his hat on the defensive end,
which is their weakness.
Yeah, exactly. If we just look back to last year, after Boston got off to a really, really slow start, post All-Star break, they were like the best team in the league, and they led the league in most of the defensive categories. That's what they became known for, a really, really good defensive unit. You look at Ime Udoka, who kind of stems from that Greg Popovich tree. Mm-hmm. Also, he did spend some time, I think he spent a year or maybe two in Brooklyn as well. So he is kind of familiar with the organization and some of the guys. He also did spend a year in Philadelphia as well. So he's familiar with Ben Simmons and how to possibly coach him and handle that situation. So I think this could be a really, really great hire for them. He's obviously shown the ability to turn a team around, just looking at what he did in his first season with the Boston Celtics. And I what I'm wondering though, and I might have to look into this, but I actually think that, and they say apparently the deal is probably inevitable. Mm-hmm. So what I'm wondering though is that I believe he'll be able to take those responsibilities immediately, because if I'm not mistaken, the suspension was handed down by the team, by the Boston Celtics.
You're right, not the NBA itself,
not by the NBA. And they had informed him that if he wanted to, he had free reign to look and possibly take another job, and it looked like that's what's going to happen.
So does that? Okay, so then that makes me think: was the plan for the Boston Celtics always suspend to ultimately hire? Or do you think that they were open to the possibility of him ever coming back? I think that's the part that shocks me, because I genuinely believe that he was going to be back at the helm, as the head coach of the Boston Celtics.
I kind of think that this was one of those, kind of like when you're on a job and, say something happens and they suspend the individual first, and then it's pending termination. It just happened that Ime Udoka's suspension happened to be a year long. Uh-huh. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of tough for me to answer that question. If I was a betting man, I would say that. And once again, they said that they did give Udoka permission if he wanted to kind of seek another team or whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I think come season's end, dependent upon how the Boston Celtics were playing and how this season resulted out for them, I think that if he was still there at the end of the season, I think they would have probably gave him his job back, especially if there was a little bit of regression in the Boston Celtics under the head coach now. So
right,
I don't know. I think if he was still there, I think they would have probably tried to give him the job back, because obviously and we only have really 1 year of head coaching experience to critique, but I mean, it was a hell of
it
a
was a great
year.
sample. I mean, we could argue that he orchestrated one of the greatest midseason turnarounds in NBA history.
You can.
You could argue that.
If you, especially if you would have seen them pre like All-Star break and the way they were struggling on both ends, and then post All-Star break, the way they picked it up on defense. This year, a guy who had always been known as a great defensive player. I'm sorry, last year, a guy who had always been known as a great defensive player under his leadership was actually able to win a Defensive Player of the Year award in Marcus
Right.
Smart.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it was a phenomenal turnaround for them. And with that being said, I mean, although they started the season, I believe 2-5, Brooklyn started this season. But if Udoka's able to get in, I mean, it's more than enough time for him to turn that thing around. You know, we're extremely early. We're only about 2 weeks into the season. We're extremely early into the season.
So okay, so let me ask you, and I know I hopped in a tad bit late, and I know you were already talking about the Nets.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to give a short answer,
Mm-hmm.
why didn't the Steve Nash hire work? Right,
I think there's a few. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, but even before you go, I just wanted to say, I mean, we know Steve Nash is being a great player. Obviously, he has a high basketball IQ.
Mm-hmm.
Was it truly his ability as a coach? Maybe some people feel like he's not as capable as a coach, or do you think he just wasn't able to connect with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant? Was it his connection with the players?
I think it was a mixture of things. You had a guy who this was his very first head coaching job. And not only did he take on a team with high championship expectation and aspirations, but he took on a team with multiple egos, a team with, well, three guys at the time who you could two, and then ultimately the third guy when they did add James Harden for that time. Three guys who you can argue, are top.
Big personalities.
All three you can argue could be top 10 players or top 15 players at least at the time. So yeah, he took on a team with a ton of expectations. I alluded to this earlier. He did have some unfortunate mishaps. When you think of the fact that big three, and I'm talking KD, Kyrie, and when they had James Harden, when you look at the minimal amount of games that they actually had to play together, you couple that with the fact that Kevin Durant did kind of deal with a few injuries here or there.
Mm-hmm.
You couple that with the fact that, and I was mentioning this earlier, the whole situation with Kyrie last year and him choosing not to get vaccinated, and ultimately missing more than half the season. I think he only played in about 30 some odd games in the season. He was only playing road games, and that was only allowed about halfway through the season. So when you consider all of those things, I mean, it wasn't going to be an easy job to begin with. Expectations were high. A few rolls of the dice didn't quite, roll his way. He kind of crapped out a few times. And ultimately, in some ways, we got to kind of look at him as well. We know that the team is going to be extremely high powered offensively.
Right.
You can kind of tell right away just looking at the type of player Steve Nash was and the type of system that he played in under D'Antoni,
right,
who was one of his assistants for a while there in Brooklyn as well.
Right.
You can kind of tell that he was going to lean more toward offense and he would be more of an offensive-minded coach. But it's no reason for their defense to be as lackluster continuously. Now, here we were heading into year 3, and even at the beginning of this year, starting 2-5, their defense has just been terrible, and it's ultimately kind of been their downfall. And for that, I think you have to kind of point the finger back at the coach, you know what I'm saying, and just say, hey, what are you doing? Why aren't you making the right adjustments? Why can't you seem to motivate these guys to want to give that effort defensively? So, yeah, I mean, I think it was just a raw deal. Ultimately though, and I believe this, ultimately, if he chooses to, if he still wants to go in that direction, because I know um he had kind of been working, doing a little front office stuff and a little player development stuff prior to this. But if he wants to still continue in this direction, I wouldn't be surprised if, sometime in the future, another team gave him another chance.
And I can see that. And obviously, this is a learning experience. It was a tough job to take in the beginning with just the three stars that you name in Harden and Irvin and Durant. But this is my thought process on his firing. If you take a job in any sport, you got to have something to hang your hat on. Like you got to be
Mhm.
like, okay, I know we're bad in all these areas, but I can at least do this.
Yeah.
And I think it was the fact that they were struggling as a team and the fact that he wasn't able to manage the personalities and he wasn't able to connect. It was just that everything was terrible that they felt the
Hmm.
need to ultimately fire him. Because maybe that and maybe that's why I guess I think that they thought hiring him that he would be able to connect with the players. Because prior to this, I'd always known Steve Nash to be extremely respected in NBA circles.
And he was kind of one of the player development guys in Golden State while Kevin Durant was there. And so at the
Mm-hmm.
time they had built, a little bit of a relationship. It seems now
Mm-hmm.
that it's kind of soured.
Yeah.
But at the time they had, kind of a pretty solid rapport. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. He just doesn't seem to. I'm not quite sure if this Brooklyn Net team ever truly bought into him. And I mean
No.
from the start, because if you
Right.
remember when he was hired, Kyrie basically said, we don't need a coach, you know. So so I'm not sure if this team and the
Mm-hmm.
personnel ever truly bought into him, because it was such an extremely an all-time talented team, they were still able to win games. Ultimately, he still has a winning record over his, coaching career. But yeah, I mean, they just ultimately, for various reasons, ultimately they were just falling terribly short of expectations.
And it's funny that this happened, right? That this stuff occurred today because obviously we gather our notes and we prep what we're going to talk about on the show days prior,
Hmm.
and I had messaged Swan, how can we fix the Nets and how can we fix the Lakers, which we'll talk about in a few seconds, and I
Hmm.
guess I don't know. I guess the basketball guys were like, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Hold my beer. And Ime Udoka might be the perfect. I mean, I think that's a perfect. It could be potentially be a perfect marriage. Both, Ime Udoka and the Nets are both in battle right now, and
Hmm.
maybe they're able to come together. He's able to help them improve in the areas that they need to improve. But I mean, man, I ain't gonna lie, I didn't see this coming.
Well, okay. Starting with the Nets, I do think that this Ime Udoka hire can be very, very beneficial for them. I do expect them to have a vast improvement, especially on the defensive end. I do expect them to give a lot more effort on that end moving forward.
Mhm.
Also, though, with the Nets, and this has been a kind of a problem with them for a couple years, they're really a small, and I'm going to use this word, delicate team. Like they're a little soft, they don't necessarily have that enforcer. They signed, I believe, Markeith Morris. They have one of the Morris twins there this year, and I think they kind of envision him maybe bringing a little bit of toughness, a little bit of physicality, being an
But they can
enforcer.
only
But
do
thus
so
far,
much.
yeah, he
Six
can
eight,
only do
six
so
nine
much.
guys.
Exactly. They got Nick Claxton playing center, who has been playing really well this year, though. I mean, he's a really good, really high energy guy, but he's still really light. And so
Right.
you see when they come across teams like a few days ago, they played Milwaukee Bucks, who, by the way, are the only undefeated team still in the league right now, who are tearing it up right now.
Mm-hmm.
But they played the Bucks, and the Bucks, as they did, in the playoff series a couple years ago, that went 7 games ultimately. They just bully them. The Bucks are just bigger than them. They can run a front line with a Brook Lopez, with a Bobby Portis. with a Giannis, and they just beat him up. They bully him. They beat him on the backboards, and that's another thing. Like the Nets religiously lose the rebounding battle because they're so small. They're so light in the tail. So I really think they could use a real true big, someone who can really really have an impact around the bucket.
So you think you think that they'll have to be active in and maybe in the trade market to get some iota of a big.
Oh yeah. Come trade deadline, they have to make some sort of move to bring in some sort of size or some sort of inside presence there, or a rim protector. They absolutely they have to. Along with this Ime Udoka hire, though, I really like them bringing him in. And I was going to shift gears to the Lakers real quick.
I was about to say, I wanted to know definitely what you thought about what they could do. Obviously, they won that first game against the Nuggets, and everybody was like, "Oh, they won! The season's about to turn around."
Right. So let me say this, and you know how extremely critical of Russell Westbrook I am. Mm-hmm. But I also want to give the man his flowers and give credit where it's due. In their win the other day, he really, really played extremely well coming off the bench. It seemed like, at least for a split second, he embraced that role, So he came off the bench, and I believe he had like 18
points.
Yeah.
Very efficient.
Very efficient. Very minimal turnovers from him. He came in, played with a lot of energy. He didn't look defeated. Like, he came in and he looked like that uberly confident Russell Westbrook that we all know. Mm-hmm. So I give him credit where it's due. And moving forward, I applaud Darvin Ham for making that move. And moving forward, I think as presently constructed, that's the best thing for the Lakers to do, is to have Russell Westbrook come off the bench. Now, speaking of the way they're constructed, as critical as I am of him and his woes and the things that he does to contribute to the state of the Lakers at this moment, he's not the only problem. The Lakers have a slew of problems. They're another team that can't defend, and they shoot worse than they defend. Terrible. This year under Darvin,
they've been better defensively.
Their defense has kind of taken strides, but they can't shoot to save their lives, and the makeup of this team is terrible. And for that, you have to look at Rob Pelinka for that, And this is a guy who they just gave an extension in the offseason. And I mean, you look at the team that was out there last year, and they struggled shooting last year. And then he comes back, he lets Malik Monk go, who was probably their most consistent shooter from last year's team. You let him walk, and especially with the guys you have, like a Russell Westbrook, like a LeBron James, you kind of need to be able to spread the floor. You kind of need some shooters around them. And now he feels a team who is probably even worse, or is a worse shooting team than the team they had last year. So I think Rob Pelinka bears some blame there. They need to they're another team that sometime during the season or come, all-star trade deadline, if they can't move Russell Westbrook, because I'm sure they're still in that market. If they can't move Russell Westbrook, they need to find a way to get some sort of shooting in there.
But this is my question, and rightfully so, we can blame Rob Pelinka because he's a general manager and it's his job. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, we look at last offseason, and he really was on the cusp of keeping probably potentially improving the Lakers roster after their championship season. With the addition of a Buddy Hield, and maybe you would have been able to keep a DeMar DeRozan and or sign a DeMar DeRozan and keep an Anthony Caruso. So it's like, as much as I want to blame Rob Pelinka, it's kind of like I hate to say it, but he's kind of doing the best with what he has. They don't have a lot of money to throw around, so you're getting you're looking for bargain guys, and this just continues to go back to LeBron kind of betting the house on Russell Westbrook and not working out.
And apparently, and this is when Buddy Hield was with Sacramento. Apparently, they had a deal done to bring him to the Lakers. And I've even seen or heard Kyle Kuzma at the time, who was on the Lakers. I even heard him speak on it, and he said, he was pretty much told like you're going to Sacramento,
right.
But I mean, as you mentioned, LeBron seemed to want Russell Westbrook in there for whatever reason, and and there you have it. Russ ends up there, and it was never a great fit to begin with.
And I said this.
Play styles, yeah.
People are like, you're
Westbrook
crazy.
Isn't good off the ball.
No.
You have two guys who not that LeBron isn't good off the ball,
but they're ball dominant players.
Yeah, I think he's at his best when the ball's in his hands and he gets to make decisions. And Russell Westbrook, without the ball in his hands, I mean, he can't shoot to begin with. So I mean, you got a Russell Westbrook out there without the ball in his hands, then you're in trouble. And then you add that to the fact that when he does have the ball in his hands, he has the propensity to make some pretty terrible, I'm gonna just say terrible basketball plays or basketball decisions, some really questionable decisions. So
okay, so
together, and there you have it.
So to keep it simple, and obviously before we move on, is there anything the Lakers can do? Like, do you think the Lakers can still salvage this season?
I mean, it's still very
early, but looking at
I'd be crazy to say they're just done. You know what I'm saying? It's still
can they compete? Because we already know what LeBron wants. Can they? I know what I believe. I want to know what you genuinely believe as a basketball aficionado. Can they make any moves to actually contend and compete in the Western Conference at current set moment?
Well, like I said earlier, I think they're still in the market or they're still shopping, Russell Westbrook around. They obviously need some shooting. And then one other thing that I didn't mention, Anthony Davis, I don't know what's going on with his health. Like, it's to the point, like, literally every time he jumps, he's grabbing his back. Like, I don't know what's going on or what needs to be done, but like, I don't even think he's 30 yet. I don't think he's 30 yet.
Yeah.
And he looks 45. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's
right.
I'd be so scared watching him and watching the Lakers. And that's another thing. He's so important to what they do. And I don't know, maybe it could be because he's not 100% healthy right now. But his play just and it's crazy to say that for a guy who's averaging 21, 22, and 9 boards or something. But
that speaks to his potential.
Exactly. It speaks to his potential. We expect more from him. Everybody expected by this time that he would be the man and the Lakers would be his team and LeBron would be taking that step back, and it just haven't came to fruition like that.
We could argue that Giannis became what people thought Anthony Davis was going to become.
Yeah, Giannis, it's like Giannis continued to work.
Yeah.
It's like Anthony Davis, when they got that ring in the bubble, it was like
I'm done.
I'm content. I did what I needed to do for my legacy's cool. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, Giannis, every night you still see that hunger and that fire. Mm-hmm. And in the off season, and I think I forgot who I was mentioning this to. It might have been you, but in the off season, he doesn't really he's with his brothers, he's with his family, but you don't really see him linking up and working out with other guys and this, that, and the third. Like, he's on his grind, because when he comes into the season, he's serious. He's gonna play hard. He's constantly trying to improve his game. He's a competitor. He wants to be the best and he wants his team to win, And I really feel like since the Lakers won that championship, I really feel like Anthony Davis is just kind of been really lackluster as far as his effort. And even in the offseason, he said he hadn't picked up the ball in like 2 months. It was one point he said he hadn't picked up a ball in like 2 months.
And Stephen A. Smith went crazy. Yeah, we didn't like that.
I as a team, if I was on the team, I would too.
Yeah. So I mean,
but I'm sorry to answer your question. They do find something for Russell Westbrook if they can't get a shooter. I'm not going to rule them out right now. It's still really early in the season, but at best,
a play-in.
They're a 6 seed to a play-in team at best.
Right, and I would absolutely agree. I 100% agree. Like you said, Lakers going to be in purgatory for the next 2 to 3 years.
And I could see that though, Bo. I could see that, especially because they don't even have a first round pick till 2027 or something like that. So and LeBron eventually Father Time is gonna catch up with LeBron. So I mean, and that's another bad thing for the Lakers. It's really like win now or never, because the future doesn't look too bright.
Well, like I said, to keep it simple, and as we end, I think this is just a case of you made your bed, now you have to lay in it. And that happens sometimes in sports. You bet the house, you bet, and you lose, and you gotta eat that.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong with it, as far I know LeBron wanted to win another championship. I would have loved to seen him win another championship. But, unfortunately, especially at this trajectory of his career, you can't afford to make those type of mistakes. And I think this should be a cautionary tale for teams moving forward. I know we want to get in from our stars, but sometimes you have to do your job. You have to trust your front office to make those moves, because yeah, I mean, so a cautionary tale. Don't always just because a guy's a superstar, future Hall of Famer, top 3 player all time, doesn't mean that he's going to make the correct personnel move. I mean, look at Michael Jordan. He's the greatest player of all time. He's fucking terrible. He's terrible. Example. Right. Prime example. So, but that is, a lot of good basketball stuff going on right now. We'll keep you guys updated with the Ime Udoka hire or potential hire, and then we'll see.
I'm checking them out. They're playing my Bulls right now, and they're beating my Bulls right now in the third quarter. With the interim coach though, with Jacques Vaughn coaching the Nets tonight, but they're up 10 on the Bulls in the third quarter right now.
Well, like I said, so we'll see what shakes up with that. But obviously, we had a lot of crazy stuff. I was working my biceps. The NFL trade deadline. It happened, man.
Did it?
It happened, and I know you're excited because when we'll jump into our recap after we talk about this. But some teams got better. I felt like it was a little more active than last year, because I felt like last year was just, you had a lot of teams you thought were going to make moves that didn't. Still some of those this year, but you really saw some teams go for the gusto. So I guess just reading off. All right. So let's start with what already happened, right? What we knew already happened. Okay, so obviously we already had the Christian McCaffrey going to the 49ers. We've seen that, last Sunday, that kind of pay off for him and look really good. Kadarius Toney was traded to the Chiefs, right, for a 6th-round draft pick. We knew he kind of fell out of favor with that New York regimen. James Robinson, I guess Travis Etienne busted out, and the Jaguars was like, all right, well, let's go ahead and ship James Robinson up out of here. And they traded to the Jets to play a substantial role in that backfield. And Roquan Smith, I mean,
don't make me cry.
But you know what? I think we knew that was coming. Once again, we're going to talk a good amount about the Bears. Because I'm loving what that team is building. I'm a Matt Eberflus guy. Yeah. I love Matt Eberflus. So I told you he is really building a culture. And I don't think this is anything against Roquan Smith. I think he's he's like, what's the analogy I like to use. It's like me and you owning a high performance vehicle, knowing damn well we can't afford it. If that mug break down, like we have no use for it, right?
Yeah.
So, trading Roquan Smith was in the best interest. I know Bo here is somewhere in the comments happy as hell because his Ravens.
But his first comment earlier here, I'm gonna go back to it. As soon as we came on, this is what I see.
Mhm.
Good evening, and thank you for your donation to the Ravens, man. You're a trip.
And you know what?
But I do want to say something, and we'll get to it in a minute. But I do want to say something about that trade, though, that kind of had me when that trade happened. It kind of had me thinking when seeing it go out. But we'll get to it in a second.
Okay. So then we had Robert Quinn, who obviously just got traded a week ago, which Roquan Smith was very emotional about upon hearing. Robert Quinn had almost, I mean, he started in Dallas, but he essentially revived his career with the Bears, had an 18-sack season last year, but they traded him to the Philadelphia Eagles. Robbie Anderson, we know a few weeks ago, he got traded to the Cardinals. And I mean, and just some of the ones that happened today, William Jackson III to the Steelers, which the Commanders were gonna release him if they couldn't find any suitors. You had Jeff Wilson to the Dolphins.
Going to the Dolphins, yeah. And meanwhile, they sent Edmonds. I think they sent Edmonds in the deal to Denver for Bradley Chubb. I think Edmonds was a part of that deal as well. And the Bradley Chubb pickup is a massive pickup for them as well.
Oh, it is, because I think they really truly, even though they have a rookie head coach, I believe that Miami has some aspirations on doing something big this year.
And seeing the moves they made, I think they believe that as well, and that's what's important.
Yeah, 100%. And once again, I think Bradley Chubb is a good pickup for him, and I think this kind of speaks volumes about where Denver feels like they are. I don't think Denver believes that they're going to be a playoff or even championship caliber team what people projected them to be. Chase Claypool to your Bears. I was happy for you. I said, you know what I said?
Man,
I
was ecstatic for that move.
I said, you know what? And so, if anybody knows Swan, not only is he a Bears fan,
Chicago fan,
not only is he a Bears fan, but he's his college team. He's
Notre Dame.
So it was
just only, a beautiful fit, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was only fitting that his Notre Dame alum Chase Claypool would go to the Bears, but
love and once again, that's what we needed to. He's a 50-50 ball guy, and we need that. And if nothing else, we need another guy who can be a threat. And who knows, possibly, because although I think he's taken a step back since his rookie year, and there might be various reasons for that. But who knows? This new change of scenery, maybe some form. I think you can still see the talent is still there.
Yeah.
And if he can step up and possibly, move Mooney over to more of a number 2 guy, which I really think he is. Who knows, man? Another great target for Justin Fields. So I like the move.
Yeah, really, really good move, and he's going to, what I will say, and once again, we're going to talk about him later, an ascending team and an ascending offense that's really starting to figure it out. So I think this is what you call a really good trade right here, because you get a young guy who is not even in his prime yet, and you're adding him to another young core. They're able to grow together. The one that caught me off guard, I'm not used to seeing. What was the last true in division trade we fucking seen? I mean, let's think of the logic. You trade TJ Hawkinson, who I've maintained this all season that he was up next. TJ Hawkinson is putting and establishing his name in that top elite tier of tight ends with Travis Kelce and Darren Waller and George Kittle. Like, I think TJ Hawkinson belongs in that. Mark Andrews, he belongs in that class.
And I think he just came off a massive game. He had just was it yesterday? Was it Sunday or a week before? He had like 12 for like 120 or something. Just a massive game.
And that's what he's capable of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you trade him to your division rival to
To
see
the
him 2
Vikings.
times a year. I don't know. I've never I don't understand the logic in it, but I mean I guess they felt like this was a team that was going to give them the best deal. So yeah,
And
so that
Detroit is a team that we both talked about. I think,
Mhm.
and I remember you saying this in the chat. You mentioned something to the fact, and it's crazy to say this, but I think that was you that mentioned something to the fact that they're like one of the best 1-5 teams that you'll ever see.
yeah, they're not a bad team. They're a good team.
They are. They're
They're
going to come out. They're going to play tough. Defensively, they have some work to do. Defensively,
yeah.
obviously, but I mean,
Which I
it's
yeah,
crazy to say, but I still like it's there. They're losing games, but it's not like they're not like the Detroit Lions of the yesteryear. Like
they're not.
you better come out and play these guys. They're not just going to give it to you.
And that is why it's just so surprising to me because I was genuinely excited on seeing this team turn around. Not saying they still can't. Maybe they felt like even though he's a great player, that they have some value at tight end. And I know they do have I don't know the names exactly, but I know that they have a buffet of other guys at the tight end position that they use in the passing game and stuff like that. Plus, TJ Hawkinson has been nicked up some time in his career, so he's battled some injuries.
But he's still
Um,
so young, though.
he's
He's still
young,
so
yeah,
young.
yeah. So that one once again was a little bit questionable. But you had some other ones, the deadline day trades. The Chiefs, they traded Rashad Fenton to the Falcons.
I'll tell you one that I did like though a sneaky move. I think I like Naheem Hines going to the Bills. I think that's a really. I think he's a talented guy. He's a talented backup. I think that can be a really sneaky move for them.
Well, okay, so here's my thing, and I like Naheem Hines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but let's be real. What is the real difference between Naheem Hines and Devin Singletary?
So are
They're
you
pretty.
saying? So if that's the case, then I'm gonna assume that maybe, and I know of late Singletary's been playing, fairly well.
Yeah.
Uh, so are you saying that maybe he just needs more touches? Maybe they need to
Well,
try to get Singletary a little more involved.
well, there's that because I'm not down on Singletary. But my thing is you sign Naheem Hines. It's not like he's going to come in and be an upgrade over any of those guys. That's my thing. I think Naheem Hines is a really good change of pace back that you can use in a lot of variety of different ways. Receiving, like he's good.
Mm-hmm.
But do we believe that Naheem Hines is going to come in and be a bell cow for them? I don't see that. I've
Oh no,
never
no, no.
seen,
I don't. But I don't
or
think
not,
they.
or not.
I don't
What
think
I
they
yeah.
envision that though.
Well, not even a bell cow, but just is he going to be? I guess I question if they get a Kareem Hunt, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If they get a Camp Akers, it makes sense because of his body type and how he differs to some of the running backs that they already have.
Mm-hmm.
The Naheem Hines just seemed like a little bit of overkill to me because you have Devin Singletary. You have James Cook, who's also a more athletic back. Now, granted, he has a little bit bigger of a frame.
I think he's gotten he's in McDermott's doghouse though.
I mean, I can see that, but I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of that sign. It was kind of like question marks, but I guess they felt like they had to get a guy at running back. So
Yes.
I mean, and once again, Naheem Hines, and there's a lot of value for him. I'll tell you another trade that excited me, and I'm kind of upset with the Falcons for doing this because I really wanted.
I knew you were going to mention this
I
one.
really
Calvin
wanted.
Ridley
I really
to the Jaguars.
I really wanted to see Calvin Ridley come back next year, pair with Kyle Pitts, pair with Drake London.
Drake London. Mm-hmm.
I thought he
maybe
would.
they get a new court. Maybe they get a quarterback in the draft, or.
Right. I really would have loved that, but I guess it became more of a culture thing. They felt like they wanted to move on for him, Arthur Smith. But he goes to Jacksonville, where he's going to be in a really, I think well-rounded receiving core. They have some talent over there. They're not devoid of talent. So,
oh yeah, and then
you
next year he'll come in alongside Christian Kirk,
who has played well. Christian Kirk has played
Mm-hmm.
well in
Yes.
Jacksonville. So I
I
mean,
think they still do they still have Zay Jones?
no. Oh yeah, they do. They do. They
So
signed Zay Jones in the offseason.
a nice deep threat. You know what I'm saying? As you just mentioned, Etienne is really starting to come into his own now.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, this and once again, this will be next year when really is able to play. But hopefully next year, Trevor Lawrence can take that next step, and we can start to see him be closer to what we thought he would be. Because I mean, as you mentioned in the chat, a conversation may need to be had about where Trevor Lawrence is in his development. But no, I a little surprising, but I do like the move for the Jags.
Yeah, I didn't see them making a move for a receiver. I could have saw them going defense. I could have saw them maybe even added at running back with the departure of James Robinson. But obviously that's where they chose to go, and they're getting Calvin Ridley, who, if I'm not mistaken, is he still in his rookie deal? He might still be in his rookie deal. He may very well still be. So, like I said, there's a lot of value there. But let's think about, before we move on, the teams that didn't make a trade, or let's look at the players that we just knew were going to get traded. Apparently,
before we get to that, though, I did want to say this about that Roquan Smith deal. As you mentioned, I mean, and obviously as a Bears fan, hate to see him go, but as you mentioned, I think the writing was on the wall. He wanted to get paid in the offseason. He didn't. Thankfully he chose to, although he voiced his frustration, he still chose to be a professional, and he did come into camp, and he came out and he's been playing phenomenal this year. He's leading the league in tackles. So I think the writing was on the wall. We were going to move him, but I guess here's my couple things about that. As far as on the Bears side, I believe they got a second and a fifth for him, I believe. And I guess for me, and this may be the Bear fan in me, I feel like we could have got a little more, for a premier linebacker in this league, a guy who's still ascending. Another thing I'll say about that is that Roquan Smith is in the fourth or fifth year, I believe, of his rookie deal. He's in the final year of his rookie deal.
He is.
And he still wants to get paid. So now he's going to a team in Baltimore who is in the ultimate, you need to pay this guy situation with Lamar Jackson. And although the market for a middle linebacker isn't crazy,
he's going to command a lot of money. You're going to have to pay him. He's a top 5 linebacker, regardless of position, in this league.
He is.
And if I'm not mistaken, he's leading the
league in tackles right now. Yeah.
Right.
And so I guess I just wonder with that dynamic, if they plan to, or how they plan to, moving forward, pay both Lamar Jackson and possibly Roquan Smith.
Well, they'll have to be crafty on how they do it. I'm sure the franchise tag will be in the plans. They'll probably do that in the interim until they can figure out.
And he's not going to like that. Obviously, he's not going to like.
No, he's not. But I tell you this: I don't think the Ravens trade for him if they don't have plans on signing him. I mean, he's not asking for what Lamar Jackson was a fully guaranteed deal. He's not asking for that. So they'll be able to flesh it out. It'll be a lot easier to get that deal done.
Yeah.
Plus, they were and we've heard Ravens.
But will it take away from potential money that Lamar wants? You know what I'm saying?
I think
it's, and although he hasn't, before Bo jumps all down our throat, although he hasn't verbally said, I want Deshaun Jackson money to start. The discussion starts at Deshaun Watson's number. Although he hasn't verbally said that, I think that is that's the consensus theme that he wants. The conversation starts at that number.
Well, rightfully so, as it should. Which that's why all owners hated it because it fucked up the market. But I think we need to ask that question in reverse: is Lamar Jackson's contract going to take away from what they can give Roquan Smith? And I think that is the way that we kind of have to view it. But
so you do think eventually they will pay Lamar?
They're going to have to. I'm gonna tell you, you know how I am with quarterbacks. Let's say Lamar Jackson never gets better, which I believe he will. He's a winning quarterback.
Yeah,
they're hard to find.
He's an MVP. He was an MVP.
He's an MVP. As critical as I am of him, he puts stuff on the field that probably a good 98, 99% of quarterbacks just cannot. So that's no matter, I don't care where you rank him, whether he's in your top 10, whether he's outside of your top 10, he's a winning quarterback. And in today's NFL, you can't afford to let go, even if you feel like a guy has limitations. Look at San Francisco right now with Jimmy Garoppolo. People felt like he has limitations. That team wins with him. Minnesota with Kirk Cousins. Why would you? What would be the point of drafting a quarterback and you can at least win games with Kirk Cousins, right? Yep. So similar thing with Lamar Jackson. They're going to get forced. They're kind of not to veer off too much, but they're going to get put into that Dallas Dak situation where I have a guy that has earned his payday, and there are other teams willing to pay him what he wants. Kind of going to have to bite the bullet and do it, but they should have done this a long time ago. Should have got the deal done. They should have got the deal done before Deshaun Watson ever signed that contract, and that's what happens. Look, AJ Brown with Tennessee, Deebo Samuel with San Francisco. Christian, they were in that price range of $18 million per year. Christian Kirk gets the deal. They look at that and they say, "Oh, well, we're better than him." Market goes up. So if you're gonna pay your guys, pay them fast because that market will reset, before you know it. But quickly, right? But going back to Roquan Smith, he is gonna give the Ravens the leader that they wanted on defense, that they were hoping that Patrick Queen was gonna mature to, but he hasn't, and maybe might not ever be that guy, and that's fine. But Roquan Smith, phenomenal leader, phenomenal linebacker, phenomenal player, kind of underrated because he's never even made a Pro Bowl.
Yeah.
But his best days are ahead of him. So when I seen this trade, I said, you know what? He's going to a strong defensive culture.
Leaving one and going to another.
And going to another with better players around him. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's going to be a fit. But before we move on, just the last three names of guys that we thought were going to get traded that didn't. Okay. Apparently, everybody was in the market for Brian Burns for the Panthers. People were willing to give up. As a matter of fact, according to reports, Carolina was so set in not moving on from him that there were teams that were offering them multiple first-round picks for Brian Burns. You know how I feel about Brian Burns. I think he's well on his way to becoming a tier 1 guy, like N.L. Mac, like Nick Bolt. Like I think he can be in that class
and I concur. I definitely agree. And that's why even with Carolina pretty much having a fire sale, garage sale, that's one piece they wanted to hold on to.
And once again, rightfully so, he's a foundational piece. You can argue, I don't want to say generational, but he's going to be an all-pro guy. That's how good Brian Burns is, and he's young. I think Brian Burns is only like 23 years old. So 23, 24 years old. So this is a young guy. So Brian Burns was a guy that a lot of teams offered them for, and they weren't able to get Carolina to budge. Brandon Cooks was apparently
and I heard your Cowboys were
very close
to the last minute. Trying to get him.
Very, 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 very close. And he wanted to go. He was very interested in going. But honestly, that deal fell through. And it was ultimately came to money per year and how they were going to handle his contract because they just re-upped him in the offseason. So that was what kind of made it guaranteed money. That's what made the deal fall through. So Brandon Cooks, and it was Dallas and a few other teams I was looking at him. I think the Rams were trying to reacquire him
Bring him
because
back,
the
um, and a
and
great fit would have been a great fit. Either team would have been a.
Oh yeah, I would have loved to see him go back to LA. I think he would have really helped their offense and spread the field for some of their underneath targets. And then the last name was Kareem Hunt, who everybody from Buffalo to the Rams to Philly. Philly was trying to get Kareem Hunt. All these teams that have championship aspirations felt like they could have got Kareem Hunt and pretty much made him, their back. And he could have paid dividends for him, but that deal fell through, and he's gonna stay in Cleveland at least until the offseason. So, pretty interesting. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and before we move on, I don't know if you noticed that it was kind of a real theme this year.
Mm-hmm.
If you look back to last year with the Rams winning a Super Bowl, they made a move. They felt like they were a Super Bowl caliber team, a team heading in the right direction. They felt like they were a threat, and they made a move. They brought in a Von Miller midseason. They made a move to kind of help get them over that hump.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a kind of a copycat league. And so now, when you look at the Christian McCaffrey deal, when you look at the Bradley Chubb to the Dolphins deal, when you look at the Roquan Smith deal, the TJ Hawkinson deal, the Robert Quinn deal to the Eagles, these are all moves made by teams who are in great positions this year who figure, hey, one move might be the one to get us over the hump. And we've seen a lot of teams make that move this year. And I think that was the theme that I really picked up from this trade deadline, is that kind of a copycat league. Guys seen the Rams last year and said, you know what? Let's go out there, let's push, let's make that one move that we feel, bring that one guy in that we feel can take us to that next level.
And then you had teams like, I got to give the Rams credit. At least they were actively trying to make moves. They just weren't able to come out on the other end. But you had teams like Green Bay and Tampa Bay, and they didn't do shit. Like they didn't.
Well, I'm really surprised at Green Bay. I'm really surprised at Green Bay.
Yeah.
Not even even the Bears. We pulled off the Chase Claypool deal. I mean,
as a matter of fact, from my understanding, they were in the talks to get Chase Claypool, and the Bears swooped in and made that trade.
Well, wonderful. The hell with the Packers, okay. But in all seriousness, when you look at him, obviously people were in talks for Brandon Cooks. That's one team that I am very surprised didn't make a move. I think for the Buccaneers, and as crazy as this sounds, I still think that they believe that they can turn it around as constructed, and they have the luxury, and I know we'll kind of touch on it in a second. They have the luxury of being in what's probably the worst division in the league right now, and it's still, even 9 wins might win that division.
That's a fact. That's a fact. No, because Atlanta is number 1 in that division right now,
and they're 4-4.
Right.
Tampa Bay's only a game at 3-5. They're only a game behind. And even right now, I don't think, even with and we talk every week about how tough Atlanta plays. If I'm a betting man, I'm not putting my money on any of those other teams other than the Tampa Bay, and that's just
And I feel like at some point they're gonna be able to win the necessary games to make it, But it speaks to them having any type of Super Bowl aspirations. I mean, we already know Tom Brady's in the business of winning championships. He's not just a wild card.
Unless something drastically changes, they're probably a first round exit, a first weekend exit.
Right. So I mean, I guess all we can count on is them staying the course, and maybe they'll figure it out. You'll see some guys get released. Don't be surprised. One guy to be look out for. Don't be surprised if Ronald Jones gets released by the Chiefs. and don't be surprised if Tampa Bay jumps on that to get him right back, bring him right back to where he just left, and obviously he won a championship with them. So they need to improve their running game. Um, they've had some struggles as well, but once again, one of the teams that I'm definitely surprised, we're both surprised, didn't make a move. So yeah, the NFL trade deadline was crazy. It was entertaining.
It was.
Was
It
hoping,
was.
some
Phone
definitely
just constantly pinging, just
ping
bing,
ping.
bing. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy.
So yeah, it's always fun. Definitely more active than in the last year, probably year, 2 years. So
Word.
most definitely. So on to our quick week 8 recap. All right, we'll be covering two games that we'll do a deep dive in. We'll do it in the midst of going through these games. But week 8 was, I would say week 8 was crazy. Kind of I don't want to say a boring week. And you never want to say boring because the NFL is pretty exciting, but it just wasn't that many exciting games that we thought they would be.
Yeah.
And kind of going through the schedule. Here I am.
Yes.
I'm gonna.
And you gonna get up on the screen?
Oh yeah, we're about to go
Okay.
ahead and throw this thing on here.
Why you working on it though? I'll jump to the first one though.
Ravens.
Yeah. Obviously Thursday night game, Baltimore Ravens defeating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 27-22. As we just mentioned, you know what I'm saying, the Buccaneers are reeling, Lamar Jackson numbers don't look just crazy, but once again makes winning plays, does what he has to do to win the game after kind of a slow start, because in the first half they started out really slow, but second half they went on. The second half they got to what they do, which was run the football. They came out, and I don't know who said something, but they came out and decided, hey, we're the Baltimore freaking Ravens, and we're going to run this ball down their throat. And over the last couple of years, we had known Tampa Bay to be a team who's great against the run, but Baltimore came out and proved they were the tougher team that night.
They did, and they were able to make those one or two plays to kind of pull them over. And then once again, the Buccaneers are just struggling, having a consistent running game and in protection. And they stalled out on a few drives, but it was an entertaining game in the second half. But the Buccaneers, they got to figure something out, because they're literally, getting worse. Things are getting worse and worse for them, and they're battling some injuries as well. So
And I said preseason when we were doing our breakdowns. I said preseason, if I had one word for them, it was that offensive line. And if you look at the way, because they lost, a couple, big names in the offseason. And if you look at the way that they're unable to run the football, you couple that with the pressure that Tom Brady is receiving, and yeah, man, they're reeling. They're reeling.
So next, we had the Denver Jacksonville game. This was played in London. Funny enough, I just knew the Jaguars were going to pull this out, but the Broncos were able to edge it out. Russell Wilson had one of his better games, and 18 for 30, 252, one TD. And they were able to get some things out of running game. Latavius Murray was doing a few things for him, but this was just, I guess I can say it, this was a game between two underwhelming teams, and Denver was just able to pull it out.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you, 100%. Trevor Lawrence, once again, still not making those strides that we expected to see from him. You know what I'm saying? 18 for 31, 133, one touchdown to two interceptions, and I mean he's still not. And I think he lost a fumble as well, but he's still not making those strides that we expected from him. And he has some nice weapons around him, and they have a pretty respectable defense as well. So I don't know. Moving forward, man, hopefully he can continue to make those strides. We talked about the move they made, which would probably be for next year. So yeah, like you said, I mean, just two bad teams. I guess somebody had to win, you know. And as Russ said, you know what I'm saying? What he said, let's ride.
Oh, I can't stand what he
I
said.
cringe every time he says it, bro. I just cringe.
That's right. Um, Panthers Falcons game, which actually was one of the best games of the
Yes,
week.
it was.
That
Yes, it was.
isn't it crazy that this Panthers team is playing better under Steve Wilkes. They're looking better with PJ Walker at quarterback, which I'm loving because I know PJ Walker's had a long road
I was
to
gonna
even
mention
just
that.
get this just to get this opportunity to get some snaps. Look, if you're looking at a lot of these guys, Deontay Foreman, he's bounced around and now he's looking like, dare I say it, a starter in this league at running back, who can do some big things. He's looking like the guy that was at Texas. And then,
Yeah, because I truly thought Chuba Hubbard was just gonna come in and he would, but no, you're absolutely right on Foreman.
yeah, he's looking like that stud that was up in Texas, and obviously DJ Moore is we know how we feel about DJ Moore. He's a really really good wide receiver. You see it here, 6 receptions for 152 yards and 1 touchdown. But he made that
Very,
big
very
critical
costly. Yeah.
costly penalty that was able to help the Falcons get back into that game, and ultimately kick the field goal to win it. They went into overtime.
Yeah.
But just two feisty teams that, well, I guess we can say that the Falcons are number one in their division, but two teams that are essentially devoid of talent, but man, they just play hard. They're playing hard right now.
You're absolutely right. Carolina, they beat Tampa Bay last week. Okay, with PJ Walker as the starting quarterback, which and just as an aside, PJ Walker's playing pretty damn well. You know what I'm saying? In Baker Mayfield's
Yes.
absence, playing pretty damn well. Little bit more of a punch, a little bit more of a spark to the offense so far. This is a game that honestly the Panthers should have won. PJ Walker throws. I'm not gonna call it a Hail Mary, but more so just a heave. You know what I'm saying? DJ Moore kind of goes on a streak. He's able to somehow just get a step past that safety. PJ Walker, excuse me, he just kind of heaves it. DJ Moore comes down with it, and then as you mentioned, the penalty on the celebration afterward, because that was I think that was a very final play of a regulation that tied the game at 34 all. He gets the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, which is 15 yards, added on to that extra point. So instead of a 33-yarder, it made the extra point a 48-yarder, which is a makeable kick, but it's not easy, with that pressure on. And the kicker misses it. And then in the ensuing overtime, the kicker missed another field goal that would have won the game. So Carolina really should have won this game. And then ultimately the Falcons were able to drive down, get a field goal. Carolina should have won this game. And that just goes to show you, just how close, or how kind of at this point in the season, how equal these teams are, because of the Tampa Bay loss, the winner of that game, and ultimately the Falcons won. If Carolina would have won, they would have been in first place in this division.
That's crazy.
In a game that they should have won.
That's That's absolute madness.
It is, especially the way that they started off. Crazy, but. Yeah, man. But as you said, this was actually to watch. This was actually one of the better games of the weekend.
Very, very fun. It made me. I looked away from it. I said, "Oh snap! They got something going here." We're gonna skip this game because this will probably be the last game we talk about.
Oh yeah, we'll come back to it.
Kind of moving through quickly. We had the Dolphins Lions. That actually the Lions jumped on them early. And we're really doing some good things, some things offensively, running the football a little bit. We're able to make a few stops in the first half defensively. And Jared Goff actually looked pretty damn good.
Yeah.
But ultimately, and I have to give, this Miami regimen, this Miami front office credit for adding these pieces. By God, sometimes Jalen Waddle,
man,
and Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are a nightmare. It's so
Jalen
much
Waddle was
speed.
playing so well that you could almost question who's the true number one.
But this is what they do. Jalen Waddle will have a game, Tyreek Hill will have a game, or sometimes they'll both go off. But
Mhm.
it's almost like you really have to pick your poison and be like, okay, who are we going to slow down today? But you have to carry these 4-2, low 4-3, or a high 4-3, low 4-2 guys. You have to carry these guys all across the field. They're running them on crossing patterns and streaks and fade routes.
Mhm.
It's very, very tough. So ultimately, that talent was able to lift them over, and they were able to come out and win that game.
Both of those guys are in the top 5 in receiving yards right now. Both Waddle and Hill, both of them
and
are right now.
and they're both going to be Pro Bowlers,
They're, they're both
which I can't think of the last time we saw two teammate wide receivers as Pro Bowlers. Somebody
and
please correct me.
and last thing, um, I think that it's time to stop questioning Tua because Tua, if when he can stay on his feet, when he can stay out there, Tua is slinging it.
He
I
is.
mean, 26 for 30, 29 for 36, 382, 3 touchdowns. I know I for one, I didn't I didn't think Tua had the arm to really, get the ball to these guys. You know what I'm saying? I thought they would outrun them, but I'll be goddamn, man. Tua's sure enough proving me wrong, and I'm happy to see it. And then, as we mentioned earlier, they made the move for Bradley Chubb. They're 5-3 now. They made the move for Bradley Chubb
To bolster that pass
this
rush, yep.
this 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 team, man. Look out for this team.
Especially if they can get a running game going. So hopefully
Yep.
Jeff Wilson could
Yep.
could really help them. Uh, so there was that game. Then we had Cardinals Vikings. Totally knew it was going to happen like this. I mean, the Cardinals best to battle back, but they just don't have enough defensively to
Mm-hmm.
stop a Dalvin Cook and stop a Justin Jefferson. Kirk Cousins has been playing, even if he hasn't been spectacular all the time, he's been very efficient and solid. He's just getting the ball to his guys. And then finally, they were able to kind of run things through. They're starting to get back to running things through Dalvin Cook, which
Yep.
once again, that's what he's there for. He's a top 5 back in the game. Use him. Um, on the Arizona side, DeAndre Hopkins is kind of back to his old ways.
Isn't he?
Right, isn't he? Top 2 guy, right? I think we can argue he's easily a top 2 guy in his sleep. And Kyler Murray, who, while talented, continues to be so underwhelming. And
Made a few mistakes in this game. Yeah.
And he throws these back-breaking interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
He's just
and that's the right term too. Some back-breaking interceptions. That's the right way to put it too.
Yeah, I mean the kid's talented, and I'll never take that away from him. But he is very underwhelming as the number 1 overall pick, and I think it's time that people start holding him accountable on that. So, I mean, that was that Cardinals Vikings game. Vikings pulled it out 34-26. Raiders Saints. I'm disappointed, man, because I've been banging for the Ravens. In our chat, man, I didn't even respond to it. They not letting me into it.
I noticed.
I have been going hard for this Raiders team all off season, and the crazy part is, I mean, this was the first game that they really just got their ass whooped. A lot of the games they've lost, they've barely lost, or it's been close. But this was a game where they really got smacked around by a Saints team that's been struggling as well.
Mm-hmm.
0 points. Derek Carr has. I mean, man, he struggled.
It was ugly.
It was. It was absolutely ugly. I'm starting to.
They didn't, bro. They didn't cross midfield until like 3 minutes left in the game.
So they had a similar offensive performance to the Texans, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it was
Devontae Adams 1 catch for 3 yards, and I think he got a little nicked up in that game.
Which it's coming to a point to where we're gonna have to. I don't think he'll get fired, but I've always touted Josh McDaniels as
McDaniels.
a one of the bright offensive minds in the National Football League.
Yeah.
And he has who we could argue who is the league's best wide receiver. And he does not know how to get him involved. And that's madness to me. And I've seen him do so much more with less. So it's tough. They're in a tough spot, but guess what? You just got Josh McDaniels. You're not going to fire him, right?
Exactly.
And you just re-up with Derek Carr, and you're not gonna cut him. You just signed him to a new contract. He's a $40 million per year guy now. So you made that bed. You gotta go ahead and eat these L's. You losing all these close games, and you're gonna have to ride this thing out and unfortunately see what happens on the back end. So that's the Raiders Saints. Really not much to talk about. The Saints just
on the other end, the Saints got back to what works for them. They got Alvin Kamara some touches. He ended up with he had 3 touchdowns on the day. Got the ball back to him. He had a little over 100 and 150, about 160 all-purpose yards, 3 tubs on the day. So they pretty much, hey, we're a little crappy on at the quarterback position right now. We got some receivers banged up. Mike Thomas is almost in that Julio Jones category. Just questionable. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and he's younger.
He's younger.
He's younger. And some guy, hey, that's why you gotta enjoy the journey while it's happening, because you never know. His body may just be failing him at this point. You don't know. But I hope he can turn it around, because I think highly of him. And I'll say this before we move on. Dare I say it, Andy Dalton is looking like a starter again.
I mean, I think they, like I said, I think they made it easy for him. You know what I'm saying? They're not asking him to win games. Alvin Kamara is finally back. You know what I'm saying? Hey, just keep it short and sweet and simple. Make some simple throws. Get the ball in Alvin Kamara's hands, and hey, man, get out the way. Just stay out the way.
So then we got Patriots, Jets. Man,
a surprise. This is a little bit of a surprising outcome to me.
Well, not to me, because you know how I am, and I'm gonna bang on my chest, especially later. These older coaches are embarrassing these young coaches. They're literally just showing them how to just coach football. Yeah. And this Patriots team is 4-4. And the crazy part is, when you watch these Patriots games, that any of them that they won, they're ugly games. Like, it's not pretty, but they're finding ways to win. And the Jets, unfortunately, they've struggled. They lost Breece Hall for the season, but that formula where they were running the football and playing defense has kind of taken a hit. Zach Wilson, who at first you're able to protect him with that running game, now he's exposed. And I'm gonna say this, man. I never was I wasn't a high on Zach Wilson guy, but there are a lot of whispers about his struggles. And I want to say Ryan Fitzpatrick came out in the interview and said that last year they had to bring in. He was struggling so much they had to bring in they brought in his personal QB coach. And Ryan Fitzpatrick said that was a red flag, because the organization was coddling him. It was almost like they were coddling Zach Wilson. So stand by to see how that situation works out. Granted, these guys are in year 2, but man, this 2021 quarterback draft class is so far, it's just not looking good.
And like you said, I mean, now because of the injury to Breece Hall, and granted, they did get James Robinson in there. I know I think he only had 5 carries the other day. They did get him in there. They still trying to get him acclimated, but because of that lack of a run game, okay, he threw for 350. Zach Wilson, I'm talking about, threw for 355. He had 3 interceptions though, and he threw the ball 41 times. And that's not the formula. Yeah, it's too much. That's not the formula they have been previously using, nor that they want to use to win games.
And he's just not ready. Most young quarterbacks aren't ready to throw the ball 40 fucking times a game. Hell, most older quarterbacks ain't ready to throw the ball 40 times a game. So
Exactly.
it's just not a sustainable recipe. And right now, their defense is just not good enough. Not yet. They're getting better, but they're not good enough
They are.
yet.
They sacked Mac Jones 6 times. They're
Yeah,
making strides. They're getting
they
there.
are. They're getting better, but we gotta give them a little bit of help. And plus, 22 points isn't terrible. So then we got the Eagles Steelers game. Man, I didn't see this outcome.
Yeah, I did only because the Eagles were coming off a bye, so they had ample time to prepare for this. And yeah, I'm not surprised, man. AJ Brown is we mix and
He's a
match,
grown
and
man.
there's some guys. Completely okay, completely grown man. He's to me thus far this year, he's starting to put himself into that top 5 wide receiver category.
Which I always
Right,
felt
right.
like,
I probably have him probably at 5. He's probably right at that back end, but he's putting himself right in that
conversation. And here's the thing, I always felt like he was capable of being that guy. Remember, we talked about it in the offseason. We were talking about all these guys that were getting re-signed, him and Deebo Samuel. And I thought AJ Brown came into the league year 1 and was already a grown man. And he showed you that there was another level to his game, But he's balling out right now for Philly. Jalen Hurts still efficient, running the football well, had a 4 touchdown game.
He threw some dots in this game.
He did.
He threw a couple. He threw one back shoulder joint to AJ Brown in the end zone. That was, in the basket.
And they're making strides as a team. They're just a really consistent team right now. Still, definitely still have some things that they can improve on. This was a bad Steelers team, so we don't know how they match up against some of the better, more elite teams in the National Football League. But they're let's be honest, they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're handling business, and they're winning the games that they're supposed to win. And they're not undefeated. You're not 7-0 for no reason. So Philly's a good team. Steelers right now, they're in a flux. They're in a suit. Not a pseudo. They need to go ahead and be in a rebuild. Obviously, they traded Chase Claypool, who's one of their young centerpieces. But Kenny Pickett came out and said something. He felt like the offense didn't study, like they weren't really prepared for some of these games. Which speaks volumes, because when you look at the Steelers, they've never been this offensive, this very unique offensive team. They've had some great players in A.J. Brown and Le'Veon Bell, but they were never just this super philosophical, confuse you on offense team. They just had really good players, and right now they just don't have that.
Right.
That's just the truth. So,
and Mike Tomlin is probably going to have his first losing season as a head coach.
Right. Which, hey, congratulations to him, right?
Yeah. Right.
So then we had Titans Texans, which I knew was going to be a little back. The Titans, both are scrappy teams. The Titans are a well-coached team by an elite coach in Mike Vrabel. Defensively, they're getting better and better. Despite, I didn't think they were going to be a 5-2 team. I just didn't see it. But despite losing, they lost their best pass rusher. I want to say a week before the season, and I always forget his name. A kid out of Boston, Landry, right? They lost him right before week 1, but they still have managed to kind of tick things up. Bud Dupree is playing up to that contract that they paid him, and then Derrick Henry was Derrick Henry. To keep it. He was King Henry, to say the least.
I think he did he tie? I think he tied O.J. Simpson for the most 200 games by a running back, 200-yard games, by a running back.
32 carries.
30.
Hey, I'm gonna tell you
carries, this. 219. They made sure, and they started Malik Willis for this game, but they made sure that the game was not put in his hands. He looked through 10 throws.
Yeah, and it was a small sample size, but hopefully they could do some things to get him more involved. But once again, great coaches find ways to win football games, and that's what you're seeing with Mike Vrabel. The Texans, they lack talent. One thing that this game absolutely put a nail in. Davis Mills will not be their quarterback of the
Oh
future.
no. Oh
Uh,
no.
and Pep Hamilton, I don't know what the hell he's doing as an offensive coordinator right now. God bless him. You know, I want to support my brothers, man, but
Yeah.
shit.
But
I
I
mean, they have.
mean, but as you alluded, I mean, it's not a ton. You know, I mean, I like Pierce. I like the running back. Obviously, Brandon Cooks is as consistent as they
I mean,
come. But
but less than 100 yards in the fourth quarter. That's bad. That's bad. You know, so it was just a really sloppy outing by them. But right now, things are kind of coming into perspective. They'll move on from Davis Mills. He'll at least be their backup.
yeah,
He's still under a rookie contract. And then they're going to make some moves. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Cooks is traded in the offseason. So then we got Commanders Colts, uh, which was a fun game.
I'm not surprised at this outcome. I think obviously the big story heading into this game was the Colts. They
Mhm,
benched Matt Ryan in favor of Sam Ellinger,
mhm,
and I mean he didn't do a ton. I mean threw for 201, no TDs, no picks or nothing.
mhm.
Jonathan Taylor came back. They kind of kept a little handle on him. He went for 76, but I mean I'll say this, you know what I'm saying? The Commanders won this. They moved to 4-4. Um, you know, I love, the Taylor Heineke. But I'll say
Mhm.
this, man. We've talked about him a lot over these past couple of years, but the NFC East is the best division in football.
It is.
It pains me to say that, but they are genuinely they now with Washington moving to 4-4, they don't have a team with a losing record.
And I have them winning next week, too, by the way.
Oh, I don't even see. I don't even know who they play. We'll see.
We'll talk about that. But moving through, we got Niners Rams. We can go ahead and talk about that game real quick. Honestly, um, the 49ers look good, but I'm not as hype on this win as everybody is for the 49ers. They played a pretty bad Rams team who has been struggling on both sides of the ball. Defensively, they can't rush the passer. They've never been just this juggernaut of a run stopping team.
Hmm.
And offensively, they can't protect the quarterback. Jalen Ramsey, who we always know as a top 3 corner, has struggled, and their whole
Mightily.
second
Yeah.
mightily. So I think obviously you saw Kyle Shanahan do some creative things with Christian McCaffrey, uh, which it's not nothing we didn't expect. We knew he was going to get into his, he pull out his bag of tricks. He probably already was.
Especially, he especially had that room to do so because I think Debo Samuel missed this game.
He did. So and they look good. I think they handle business. Um, but I'm not gonna like how some of these people on other people on sports media are about where this 49ers team is. I'm not gonna do that. Like I think they got some building to do. They got a few things they got to figure out. Um, but they just played a divisional opponent that's limping right now. The Rams right now, I don't have them making the playoffs. I don't. I think this division, the NFC West, which obviously we're going to jump into the Seahawks game next. They're not. They're only going to put one team in the playoffs. They're not putting two teams in the playoffs.
You think so?
I 100% believe so.
3.
I think the N.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think
Because
the NFC.
you
I think the
probably get
NFC.
3 from the East.
I think NFC East is putting in 3 teams, and I think only one team is going to make it. So everybody's hype. I mean, I think people are going off of the brands and the names, but the truth is there's only going to be one playoff team in that division. So we'll see what happens moving down the stretch. But I mean, you can tell me what you thought about this game. This is one of the game I wanted to cover because we're seeing the fall of the Rams. They did all that star power shit, and I mean, they were able to get the championship. Okay, good on them. But right now, there are a few. They don't have depth. There are a few injuries away from just being a terrible team. And then Cooper Cup had a scare. But
I
I
was
mean, what do
I
you
was
think?
I was I was I was gonna mention that and as Bo agreed, he's saying the NFC East is gonna get 3 in as he agreed.
Mhm.
I was gonna mention that Cooper Cup did get banged up, although I think they said X-rays on him were negative. So I think they said he's okay. Um, yeah, like you said, man, just to piggyback off of what you were saying, man, the Rams have some issues and they're just not a good football team right now. They have offensive line issues as we've seen, and they cannot run the ball.
At
They
all.
cannot run the ball. I've never even heard of this guy, Ronnie Rivers, but he led them with 8 carries. You know what I'm saying? They had
I don't even know who that brother. I don't know who that brother is.
no idea, but he led them with 8 carries for just 21 yards. They had 56 rushing yards as a team, and I mean they're struggling. They can't run the ball. They're not really great in pass pro right now. They could really use a deep threat. They could really use someone that can kind of get over the top and really kind of stretch out the field. Um, Allen Robinson had 5 receptions for 54 yards, and this was probably the best game he's had all year. You know,
Possibly.
So I mean,
At least from a volume standpoint.
Exactly. I think that they were expecting a lot. I think people expected a lot of him just because of the name and him coming in, but ultimately, right now within their offense, he just hasn't seemed to be the right fit, or he's definitely not what they need. And then, I mean, as far as the Niners go, I think the fact that Deebo Samuel did miss this game, it allowed them to kind of really be creative with some of the things and some of the setups that they might have had for Deebo that they were now able to use for a very talented guy in Christian McCaffrey. Ended up having kind of an NFL triple crown where he ran for a touchdown, caught a touchdown, and threw a touchdown, which is really where we haven't seen it too many times in this league. Jimmy Garoppolo, steady wins the race. 21 for 25, 235, 2 TDs, no interceptions, no turnovers. Steady wins the race. Brandon Ayuk, who we both love, 6 for 81 in a TD.
He's getting
I think Brandon Ayuk
and better.
And I know Deebo Samuel is the big name. Deebo Samuel is probably the better football player. I'd say Ayuk is the better receiver.
Thank you. Okay, cool.
I'm
glad we're on the same
better receiver. I think Deebo is just a football player. And even he has had some, and that's one thing I don't think you touched on. Even Deebo has kind of struggled this year.
Oh, he has. No, he's 100% struggled. Trust me, I have him in fantasy.
But yeah, I mean, moving forward though, I mean, I think this is 3 wins and 3 of the last 4 as far as wins for the 49ers. So we'll see what happens from here. And I think you're right though. This team only gets one playoff team in, and looking at the way the Seahawks are playing right now, man, we better look out, and because we're about to meet the halfway point in the season. You know what I'm saying? So this is where the rubber's really about to start meeting the road.
And I'm going to say this as we go into the Seahawks. The 49ers, they bet it big. I'm going to tell you this. That was a bold move trading Jeff Wilson. So now what you're going to do is your bet. Watch this. Elijah Mitchell is hurt. He's coming back off an injury.
And you're betting McCaffrey is injury prone.
You are betting the house on an injury on a guy that's barely played in the past 2 to 3 years in the National Football League. So, hey, it looks. I'm gonna say that to everybody. It looks cute right now, but let that injury happen. They're gonna look like buffoons. They're gonna look like man, you did all that to trade for a guy that was gonna get injured. But I'll leave that.
We're gonna see Deebo Samuel in the backfield a whole lot more.
He gonna be that starting running back. That's what they paid him all that. They paid him 20. He gonna be a 25 mil per year running back.
But turned into Cordero Patterson,
who's balling by the way, and he's coming. I think he's coming back next week. I got him in fantasy.
I can't wait. My fantasy team needs him.
So then we got
right to the Giants Seahawks. Yeah.
We just spoke about the Seahawks. I said this earlier, and I'm going to continue to beat on my chest. Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick, but let's talk more about Pete Carroll because obviously this team is 5-3 and leading their division. He is outclassing these young coaches with substantially less talent. All these guys are cast off 6 round. I mean, isn't this? Let's be honest. Isn't this the same formula he used to build that Super Bowl team. Take
Yep.
cast-offs, take players that nobody wants, and
And you can say what you want about him. There may be better X's and O's coaches, but when it comes to a guy who builds culture, who just makes a team believe in him, and it ultimately reflects on the field. I mean, Pete Carroll's doing a hell of a job with this Seattle team.
he's almost like the Mike Shanahan of this era. Because Mike Shanahan, you look at some of those Denver teams. I think John Elway was the only first round pick on those teams. Yeah. So they had a lot of low round draft pick guys. Shannon Sharp was picked in like the 8th round or something like that.
Really.
So they had a lot of those type of guys, and you see Pete Carroll kind of build his roster, and they had a phenomenal rookie class this year.
But as you can see, they have a guy in Kenneth Walker III who you lose Rashard Penny, and he just comes right on in and carries on business as usual.
Yeah, and Kenneth Walker III is looking like the cat that was a Heisman candidate at Michigan State a year ago.
And I think right after the draft, we were kind of mentioning that he could possibly be a real steal for them out of Michigan State and coming in there. So yeah.
And I put this in our chat. I don't look at the Giants any less for losing this game. This was a game that I predicted that they would lose because it's a team with a similar culture, actually less talented, but Pete Carroll is, we can at least say this. He's a superior coach than what Brian Daboll is. And this is nothing against Brian Daboll. But you're seeing the job that he's doing with Seattle right now. Those guys genuinely believe that they're winners. And it's an argument. If we pick the Pro Bowl and All Pro team right now, Geno Smith would be on it.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this to you last week, but once again, just listening to one Mark Sanchez who was on the Jets while Geno was drafted there his rookie year. And to listen to the way he raves about Geno Smith and the growth that he's seen from him from that rookie season, those first couple years to now. Mark Sanchez said he honestly, genuinely didn't think Geno Smith would still be in the league, 3 or 4 years from now.
Because he's very arrogant.
The arrogance, the immaturity, he said he was saying that he really didn't think, Geno loved the game. And to see him come full circle and to see where he is now, he says it's almost a miracle to see it. If you would have seen him then, vice now. and so shout out to Geno, man. And you're right, man. He's just as if season ends right now, he's a Pro Bowler. I have to put him in there.
And I want to say this. This is what football. I'm a genuine football lover. Just the culture and the history. This is what football is about.
Mm-hmm. To
see guys, turn around, commit to the game, turn their careers around. Even though we don't see it too often in the form of how Geno Smith is doing it, he really did the work. And it's funny, they won this game, and he used to play for the Giants. He was a backup for them about a year and a half ago. Right. And he said this wasn't a revenge game. He said this was for some of those guys that believed in me. He said Ben McAdoo, who, if I'm not mistaken, is maybe he's on the Cowboys coaching staff. No, he's on the Panthers coaching staff. Ben McAdoo believed in him and felt like he could still, be a player in this league. And it's things like that really make you fall in love with the player and the man that Geno Smith has become. So I'm rooting for the Seahawks team. I'll be honest, I really want them to win their division.
I think it would be a really, really, really great story. Although I don't think it's going to happen, but it would be a really, really great story. I got a quick question for you though, just real quickly. The way Geno is playing, come off season, if he continues on this path, come the off season, do you think they bring him back, or if not, do you think some team genuinely pays him and gives them a vote of confidence and takes them moving forward as their quarterback?
So going back to my quarterback argument, if you find a quarterback that you can win with, you stick with him. And I think based off of where Seattle is, Pete Carroll just dealt with Russell Wilson for the better part of 10 years. And obviously he was with him since he was a young kid coming to the National Football League. But to see him grow into this prima donna type of character and be a little bit more self-centered, I think where this Seahawks franchise is, where this team is right now, even if it's not a big money deal, I could see them working something out to keep Geno Smith around for about maybe a 2 to 3 year contract as a short-term starter, because right now I'll keep it simple. Pete Carroll is gonna love and probably go to bat for Geno Smith because Geno Smith is fully on his program. I don't have to argue with this guy. I don't have to tussle with him. Everyone knows behind closed doors, Pete Carroll, we're going at it. He doesn't want to deal with that. And you're seeing the dividends that is paying for that culture. These guys believe in each other.
Yeah.
So Geno Smith has bought in. I think it's as long as he continues to buy in, and if that team keeps winning, I'll tell you this, if that team makes the playoffs,
how can you not bring him back?
You're gonna have to bring him back, and you have those draft picks, They have Denver's draft picks, so they're only gonna get better. So just look out for them. They're gonna win some games this year, but look out for them in the next 2 to 3 years. They have draft capital, and they found a winning formula.
Okay.
So Seahawks, Giants. So then we got this game, Packers, Bills. We knew the Bills would win.
I think this is a little tougher than they expected. The Packers, they hung around. They played it really tough in this game. I'm gonna mess his name up. I want to say Dobbs, Romeo Dobbs, Dubes. I want to mess his name up, but he had a hell of a catch in this game. I really think and obviously Aaron Rodgers has spoken to the woes of his wide receivers. I think he said something earlier in the week alluding to they might need to kind of, in so many words, dumb down the offense for these guys because they're just not getting it. But I think he might have some with Dobbs, man. Dobbs has been fairly consistent for him this year. He's made a few plays for him this year. But with that being said, the better team, the more talented team, obviously came out with the W in this game, and that's just really what this came down to. You know what I'm saying? Once again, we talk about receivers. Another guy we never mentioned, Stephon Diggs, man. He's just another measly 108 yards in a tub. Just a Tuesday for him. You know what I'm saying? Another guy we don't mention.
And he's probably been the most consistent guy in the league in week-to-week performance. So now I'll say this before we move on. Buffalo looks good, but they do have some things that you worry about. They can't put games away.
And I think that's why I do think this was a good game for them. This was a good game for them to see some things they need to address.
Yeah, if they don't get that running game going, it's over. If they're gonna lose, they're gonna lose to a Kansas City when it comes down the road, because Kansas City can run the football now. That's crazy. I didn't think I'd be able to say this. Kansas City can run the football now. So if you keep playing with fire, what did Terrence Howard say on Four Brothers? You keep knocking on the devil's door, one of these days he gonna answer you. So if you don't focus on building that running game, I don't know if they had their bye week yet.
I don't believe 6. This was week. Oh, I guess so, because they're 6-1 now, and this was week 8. So yeah, I guess so.
Okay, see, so I don't know, but whoever the offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, he doesn't. I hate to say it. I know man's probably married, has spouse, has kids, but he doesn't need any family time for the rest of the season. You need to be implementing a run package and getting some things going.
Off topic. Sorry, off topic. But it really makes me feel old when I see guys that I watched in
as
college,
players,
and now they're like
coordinator.
coaches, like an
Yeah.
offense. Like, well, man, I remember Ken Dorsey was at Miami. Man, they was out there killing guys. You know what I'm saying? Killing teams.
Hey, the game it moves fast, man. So it's a lot of guys that were players, and a lot of these guys are coaching now. So then we got the final game before we get to and talk about our game. We got the Bengals, which was a bit unexpected. I don't think anybody expected the Browns to come out there and have that type of performance. The Bengals are clearly struggling. This is their first game having to find an identity without Jamar Chase because he took so much attention. And to add that on, they can't run the football. Joe Mixon's struggling. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Joe Mixon. And he dropped. Not only is he struggling running the ball, like he's always been a really good pass catcher out of the backfield. He dropped a couple easy catches out the backfield yesterday.
Yeah. And I think that stuff adds in, and you got the performance that you got out of him, where they just weren't able to put much of anything together. Now, do I think that they'll figure it out and they'll make the proper adjustments? Yeah, they'll need to, because Jamar Chase is going to be gone for the next for the next 5 to 6 weeks. So he's probably not coming back till getting close to playoff time.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, just to kind of keep it simple, I didn't expect it. This is a Browns team that's has struggled themselves. Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb, so we expected him to have his performance.
Just go ahead, chalk 100 up.
Right.
1-on-1 for 2 tubs. Just if nothing else, just chalk 100 up for Nick Chubb, and then worry about the rest.
Amari Cooper
played a really good game. Amari Cooper played a really good game. 5 for 131 in a tub.
And Cincinnati had a big loss. From my understanding, they lost Chidobe Awuzie for the year. He tore his ACL, and he's actually transformed into a pretty good corner for them.
Oh, yeah.
So that's going to be a big loss for them. But hey, next man up, kind of similar to how they were last year. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with this division. If I'm not mistaken, who does that put at first place in that division? Are the Ravens number one?
The Ravens. I think the Ravens are still in first place in that division.
Yeah, because the Ravens are what, 4-4?
No, they're
5.
No, they're over 500 for sure.
Oh, they're over 500.
They're 5-3. I know they're over 500 for sure.
5-3, right? So, but it's everything's still close, still within reach.
Yeah, they're 5-3. Since he just go 4-4.
Right. So that is kind of how this division.
Sorry, Bo. Before you go kill us. Sorry, Bo.
Yeah. But now I know we got only a few minutes left, but we can talk a little bit about this Cowboys Bears game that was probably one of the best of the week. If not
very
the best
exciting game to watch. Like, just watch it. I mean, they were. If you want to see a good offensive game, this was the one to watch.
Well, let me start off by saying this. This game didn't surprise me. I was telling a lot of people, I'm high on my Cowboys, but a lot of people were like, oh, this is going to be an easy game for you. I said, no, it's not, especially after watching that New England game, because I watch the Bears find that formula and like, okay, this is who we are. They found their identity.
And FYI, not to cut you off before you keep going. Yeah. FYI, the final of this game was 49-29. It might be a bit misleading though, because this was a 28-23 game in the third quarter. So I mean, this score might be a tad bit misleading as to how the game kind of actually went. Obviously, Dallas blew the thing wide open, in the second half, but it wasn't. It didn't feel like a 49-29 game.
No, it didn't. It didn't. And I'll say this: the reason why Dallas won is because Dallas is at current set moment the more talented and more established team, and they have special players that
Mm-hmm.
make those plays that lift them over the top. It wasn't because the Bears are a bad team, which actually, crazy enough, in a perfect, there's a chance that the Bears could. I don't
Oh,
know.
oh, 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 oh. We're 3-5. There's at least 2 games that I can tell you as a Bears fan. There's at least 2 games that we should have won, just point blank.
Right.
Period. We yeah.
And they're the number one rushing team in football right now.
Yep.
But talking about this matchup, I knew it was going to be a struggle for Dallas to game. And Justin Field, and then they have so many bodies, so many runners that they can throw at you with David Montgomery, with Khalil Herbert, and then now you're throwing in Justin Fields on design QB runs. So it was going to be a battle for them, and they were able to kind of stay the course and really build that running game. And it opened up the passing game. You start to see Luke Getsy starting to get into his groove.
Yeah.
You're starting to see him get Darnell Mooney more involved. N'Keal Harry came back. You saw him; he caught a touchdown pass.
I was happy for him. I was really happy to see him get that.
This is a really impressive Bears team, and I don't think after a loss like this, I don't think the Bears should hang their head. I think they should look at it like we have a bright future. And I have always been big on Justin Fields. I think people were giving him a lot of flack, but things are slowly starting to come together. And Matt Eberflus, dare I say it, he might have been more important to that Colts team than people gave him credit for. And not just defensively, maybe for the culture overall, because the Colts are struggling right now. Even defensively, they're not the same team defensively.
Yep.
Right?
Even with Shaq Leonard back in the fold.
Right. They're not the same. Right. So that was my biggest takeaway from this game. Dallas offensively, Dak Prescott looked better. He's starting to get back into his groove. They're starting to build the passing game a little bit. And then they were able to, obviously, Zeke didn't play and Tony Pollard had a game. Right. So, I mean, nothing happened for Dallas unexpectedly. There was nothing about this game that really caught me off guard. They were going to struggle stopping the run. They've been a middle of the pack run defense all year. I knew they were going to get some sacks on Justin Herbert. They sacked him about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And they just made the plays when they needed to make them. And as always, they continue to be plagued by those damn penalties, right? That are backbreaking and that could cost them some games later on down the line if they don't get that fixed. But you could tell me what your thoughts was on what you've seen from your Bears team.
I think that if you would have told me coming into this game, if you would have told me that the Bears were going to score 29 points, I'd have said, well, shit, we're going to win this thing. You know, because I guess in hindsight, though, the Bears, they coming into the game, they had the number 1 pass defense, and I think they were 29th in rush defense. Now, as a whole, I mean, the defense as a whole didn't play well at all. As a matter of fact, the Cowboys scored touchdowns on their first 4 possessions. Mm-hmm. So as a whole, the defense didn't play well at all. And I put in the group chat, we think we saw some terrible defense from the Bears, just, stand by. Now they've essentially, got rid of their best 2 defensive players in Robert Quinn and then in Roquan Smith. I think that was yesterday. So, yeah, man, it's. With that being said, I'm gonna switch over. The defense might have some tough days ahead. Although we got a couple kids in the secondary with Vildor and Brisker from Penn State.
Stud.
Love them.
Stud.
Him alongside Eddie Jackson. Love them. Yeah. Anyway, getting over to the offensive side of the ball, I got to give Luke Getsy some credit, man. I am loving.
He's proving me wrong.
He's finally starting to get Justin Fields out of the pocket, allow him to use his legs a little more, giving him some freedom, putting in a few more designed runs. And I think he's finally taking what we have on offense or the lack of what we have offense and trying to be creative and just doing the best he can to do what works for us. We have, this is crazy. We have we have had over 200 rushing yards in 3
Oh,
consecutive
three.
games.
That's nuts.
And we have, unfortunately, we only have 1 win to show for it.
But that's gonna pay off.
It is. It's going to pay off. I'm just like it's not just a dead offense anymore. Like
No,
now,
it's not.
I'm actually getting excited when I see the Bears offense go onto the field now because they've found some success with something, and it looks like they found an identity finally on offense.
And I'm gonna make this argument. For Dallas, this is why, for anybody that ever had doubts, there was going to come a day where this offense was going to need to bail that defense out because they've held it down.
Yeah.
And this was that day where you see the value in a Dak Prescott.
Mm-hmm.
If Cooper Rush is starting in this game, Chicago wins easily because he's not able to make the throws. It's just so many limitations on the offense with a Cooper Rush. But that is the only thing that really kept the Bears from winning the game, is that Dallas was able to make those few big plays on offense that was able to put them over the top and win. Because you're right, third quarter, it was 28-23. I was like, I don't know, man. But
and I mean, we ran for 240. I think we dominated time of possession, but the Cowboys are just, like you said, they got the players to make those plays. So they were just boom, scoring, boom. Here's this one, boom. Here's that one, boom. Boom. Here's CeeDee Lamb over the middle, touchdown. Then backbreaker, boom. There goes Tony Pollard for, what was it, a 54-yard touchdown run. There it is.
And I'll say this, a year from now, based off of all this capital that they're getting, this could be a dangerous team, Chicago.
Oh yeah,
this could be a very team, just because of the culture that they're building, and then we're seeing. I always said this because a lot of critical of Justin Fields unfairly, even when he was at Ohio State, and I always told people, I always felt like Justin Fields was every bit as good, if not better, than Trevor Lawrence, and right now you're seeing we're watching Trevor Lawrence struggle with an offensive head coach and a buffet of weapons.
And
way more weapons
that are far better than what Justin Fields had.
And we could honestly really argue that Justin Fields, despite having less around him, has weathered the fucking storm.
Oh yeah. And the kid is tough as nails. Tough as nails.
I enjoy being proven wrong, contrary to popular belief. And what I thought Trevor Lawrence had as far as that mental strength and that mental fortitude to withstand the rigors of going to a bad franchise is what we're seeing out of Justin Fields. He has stayed the course, and he is just really, really a good fit for that Chicago, for that city right now. So I'm loving what you guys are building. I can't speak enough. I was watching the game. I said, man, I'm impressed. And in Matt Eberflus, you can tell that those players they're bought in, especially guys that are going to be there long term. They're bought into what Flus is building. So
yeah, I like it. And it's crazy to find encouragement from a 49-29 game, but I really did. I really did. And so hopefully moving forward, we got some tough games coming, as the season wears on. But
y'all should be Green Bay.
Forward,
y'all should be Green Bay. Y'all,
But you know how some teams just we just seen last night, like with Cleveland and Cincinnati. You know how some teams, they just got your number. And I feel like we've lost like 7 in a row. Like
okay.
I mean, I bet I'll pick them though.
This is what I think it's the equivalent to. It's almost remember when Brian Flores went to the Miami Dolphins and they played the Patriots that second time and they beat them.
Yeah.
But remember, it took for him to trade some people away. People had to buy into the culture, what he was building, and then they beat New England. They beat them pretty handily. I think that you could see a similar type of deal because Matt Eberflus he's building something there.
Yeah.
There's a vision. This team could be good. And this is probably the best I felt about Chicago in years. I'm excited for you guys.
Me too.
Yeah.
I like I said, it's crazy to find excitement or to be encouraged in a 49-29 game, but I really did leave, and I was down there around the stadium. I was at Texas Live there around the stadium. I watched the game there. So extremely large venue, a good place to catch any sports activity there. But yeah, it was. I left there. I was encouraged. I really was.
So, yeah. So that was week 8.
Now we can move forward to. We can jump into these predictions for week 9. Hit a little rapid fire on these joints.
Yeah.
I don't even want to listen. I'm gonna just be honest with you, bro.
Shoot them off,
bro. You first of all, this is like the second week in a row that you done just killed me with the picks, man.
Like, hey, man, well, now
just killed me with the picks. So let me go on here, take a deep breath.
And I almost won my pick'em league. That would have been, man. That would have been that would have been gas money, grocery money. I almost won my pick'em league. All the above.
All right, we going. All
right, let's shoot them off.
Rapid fire. Let's get into it. All right. Thursday game, Philadelphia Eagles at the Houston Texans. Philly's favored by 14 in this game, by 2 touchdowns. Who you got?
I'll take the over on the points, and I'll take Philly. Come on.
Okay. Seriously.
All right.
Philly plus the points. No, not much needs to be said about this, man. I mean, Philly's. The Texans might hang tough for a little while, but ultimately Philly's going to steamroll them. So
they'll punch him in the mouth. They'll punch him in the mouth, and Philly will take it, and then they'll knock him out, and they'll be over.
Yeah, they'll wake him up.
Yeah.
Okay, really interesting game here. Chargers coming off the bye week. Chargers playing in Atlanta against the Atlanta Falcons. The Chargers are 3-point favorites in this game. Really interesting game. Who you got?
I think this is a dangerous game. I'm gonna pick Atlanta. They're supposed to get Cordero Patterson back, if I'm not mistaken. He could possibly be back next week. But this Atlanta team is feisty, and the Chargers are they're a very talented, mentally weak team. And Brandon Staley. I hate to say it because I actually know people that have played for him, and when he coached college and things of that nature. But he is not. So far, I could see him possibly being a end of the year fire. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick. I'm gonna take Atlanta.
Yeah, I think if they don't make the playoffs, I think they will let him go.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, I'm gonna take the Chargers. If for no other reason, I'm gonna take them because they're coming off a bye week. I'm still not sure about Keenan Allen's status. I'm not sure if he'll be back for this game, but. Either way, same with Mike Williams. I'm not sure about his status either, but I think they'll have ample time to prepare for this game coming off the bye week. I think we see Justin Herbert have a Justin Herbert game. Austin Eckler has been quietly playing phenomenal. I know because I have him on my fantasy team. Okay, and I'm gonna take the Chargers in this game. All right. Miami Dolphins at the Chicago Bears. Miami is 5-point favorites in this game. It's pretty close, huh? Who you got, though?
You know what? I'm going to be an asshole. I'm going to take Chicago. I think that if they're able to really run the football down their throats, which I believe that they can. I believe our defense is head and shoulders better than Miami. Miami's defense. Mm-hmm. If they could slow the game down and keep them two fast boys off the field, if y'all can win the time of possession like y'all won against Dallas, I think y'all can win. I'm gonna go ahead and take Chicago. I'm gonna be that asshole.
Well, I guess I'm gonna be the asshole too because I'm not gonna lie. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking you just mentioned something not too long ago that you just mentioned that the success that we've had running the football it has to pay dividends, and I think I'm hoping that it'll be a little more of the same in this game. I'm hoping that we'll have just the same amount of success running the football, and like you said, keep this Miami offense off the field, keep both those track stars off the field, and right now our defense isn't at our best right now. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be that guy too. This might be
Oh,
my heart instead of my head, but hey, I'm
mhm.
taking the Bears too.
Let's take it.
All right, Carolina Panthers at the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincy is 7-point favorites in this game.
I'm gonna take Cincy. They'll make the necessary adjustments. Probably the spring get T Higgins going again, and just look out for this being a rebound game. But I'm gonna go ahead and take Cincy. Their defense is good enough to. Their defense is definitely going to be good enough to slow down the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that they're just a better team, and this is going to be a game for them to kind of get things back on track. So I'm gonna take Cincy.
I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I'm like this close to picking Carolina because I like what I've been seeing from them. I'm like this close. I'm gonna take. You know what? Screw it. I'm taking Carolina.
Take them. Hey, do what you got to do. Hey, for good reason. They're bad. They're an untalented team playing hard.
They've been playing tough. I think Cincinnati. Jamar Chase will still be out. Something to keep your eye on. That kicker, Evan McPherson, all of a sudden he's struggling. And in a game like this, which I think is going to be really close, just keep an eye out for that. All right. Green Bay Packers at the Detroit Lions. Green Bay's 3.5-point favorites.
I'm going to keep swinging at this. I'm going to take Detroit.
Look, and I'm going to swing too because I'm taking Detroit too.
because they let's be honest, they didn't lose. They really didn't get their ass whooped by Miami. Miami just has these two otherworldly deep threats in Tyreek Hill and James. They're not gonna have those same issues with Green Bay. So I got them go ahead and finally getting that second win. And I think they've made some improvements defensively. It wasn't like Miami was going crazy all game. They actually had a second half surge. So they're starting. I'm going to say this before, and we can move on. They're finally finding that formula, and I think that they've kind of established that Jamal Williams is their number one running back now, and DeAndre Swift is better in a complementary role. And I think
I think we'll see. I feel like Sunday they just kind of wanted to take it slow with DeAndre Swift. You know how I feel about Swift, and not that Jamal Williams isn't a stud as well, but I love some DeAndre Swift. I think he's great. But I don't know. That's interesting. I think we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, either way, they're a hell of a tandem. Either way.
Yeah. All right, what's next?
Indianapolis Colts at the New England Patriots. New England's favored by 5.5. This is a must-win for both of these teams.
I'm gonna take New England and the points.
Yeah, I'm gonna take New
England
as well.
They're the better
team. Sam Ehlinger still. I'm not a believer yet. You know what I'm saying?
No.
And I think Bill Belichick gives him fits defensively. I think he comes up with some scheme and gives him fits. So yeah, I'm taking New England as well. Buffalo Bills at the New York Jets. Buffalo is 13-point favorites here.
I'm gonna take Buffalo. Obviously, they're the better football team. If the Jets would have still had, if they would have still had Breece Hall, then I would have took it. It could possibly still be more competitive than what we think it is, but I'm gonna go ahead and take Buffalo.
Yeah, I'm going to take Buffalo as well, but I'm interested to see just how competitive a game it is because I think that'll be really telling for this New York Jet team if they could at least put up a fight, if they can hang around, if they can make Buffalo kind of sweat a little bit. I think it'll be really telling for them. But I'm taking Buffalo as well. Mm-hmm. Minnesota Vikings at the Washington Commanders. Minnesota's 3.5-point favorites.
I'm taking Washington. Sometimes it's not about talent, it's about fit and it's about culture. And with Taylor Heineke, he's not special, but they will run through a fucking
They
wall
will
for
break
him.
their necks for him. Yeah.
And he has a connection with Scary Terry once
Mm-hmm.
never developed. Um, and I think that's going to pay dividends. They're starting to find a formula running the football with Brian Robinson is the hammer at running back, and Antonio Gibson. Actually, the funny part is we thought he fell out. Actually, kind of became their X factor on offense. They move
Yeah.
him around because remember, and Antonio Gibson used to be a receiver. So they move him around, they put him in receiving situations. They do all kind of things with them. So don't be surprised if they're able to get his Minnesota some fits. But I'm gonna take Washington.
I think that Minnesota is the good team in the league that no one is talking about. They've won 5 games in a row. They're quietly 6-1. And I just don't think anyone's talking about them. And so I think they quietly just keep moseying along. And I'm going to take Minnesota in this game to get their 6th win in a row, improve to 7-1. Um, Las Vegas. I almost said it again. Las Vegas Raiders at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Vegas is favored by a point. They both in dire need of a win here. I mean, who you got, though?
I'm gonna go ahead and keep suffering. I'm gonna take Vegas. They finally get their second win.
It'll be their third
Their
actually.
third win. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna take
Uh,
Vegas.
yeah, I'm taking Vegas as well. I just think they kind of rebound from such a poor offensive outing, and I think they do just enough. I think this game will be a little close, but I think they do just enough. They probably win it by a field goal or something. But I'm taking the Raiders as well. Seattle Seahawks at the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona's actually a 2-point favorite in this game.
And I don't know why. I don't know. I have no idea why. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take Seattle. And I think that they'll beat them handily. They'll be able to run on them. Uh, I mean, Kyler Murray will get some garbage time yards and he'll make a few plays. But now you're going to be throwing the football. Don't be surprised to see that secondary from Seattle get some picks with Tariq Woolen and Quadri Diggs and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm taking Seattle.
I'm gonna take Seattle as well. I do think it'll be kind of a close game. I think it'll be kind of similar to Arizona's game against Minnesota. I think that they'll make a little furious run, maybe there toward the end, kind of make a game out of it. But and like you said, I think Kyler gets some garbage stats, but ultimately, I think Seattle will come out on top of this and move to 6-3. Seattle could possibly be 6-3. Um, LA Rams at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who would have thought in this meeting that one team would be 3-4 and one team would be 3-5, both in dire needs of a win? Tampa's 3-point favorites right now. Who you got?
So this is tough because both of these teams are bad in areas, so they can't exploit others' weaknesses. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna take Tampa Bay, um, just because I believe they're a little bit better than the Rams right now. They'll be able to put some pressure on Matthew Stafford, and that'll be the deciding factor. So I'm going Tampa.
Man, I don't know because you're right. They both not playing their best right now. I'm gonna go Tampa too. I think obviously Cooper Cup got a little banged up, so we're not sure if even if he plays, we're not sure if he'll be 100%. And so yeah, I think the Rams offense struggles. I don't think Tampa Bay's offense just lights it up, but I think they'll be able to do just enough to win. I see a really low scoring game here, like 19-16 or something. But I'm gonna take Tampa Bay as well. Um, Tennessee Sunday night game, Tennessee Titans at the Kansas City Chiefs. 5-2 teams now. Kansas City is 12.5-point favorites. Who you got?
I'm gonna take Kansas City. I think this is gonna be a game that Tennessee, unfortunately, is not gonna be talented enough to scheme themselves out of.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs aren't a pushover defensive team anymore, so you're not gonna use that as a strength. Maybe Derrick Henry still has a big day, but I don't see 200 yards or anything. They're not going to be able to ride him for 32. And the thing about Kansas City is that they'll put so much pressure on your passing offense because of the way that they can score. And right now, I just don't think Tennessee has the personnel to truly stop this Kansas City offense. And hey, don't be surprised if you see Andy Reid get cute with Kadarius Toney and Miko Hardman. So I'm gonna take Kansas City. I'm not gonna be disrespectful to Tennessee and take the points. I think it'll be more like 7-10, but I'm taking Kansas City.
I'm going to take Kansas City as well, especially if Malik Willis is still behind center. Nothing against him. I just think this is just a really tough spot, a tough task for him. I think Tennessee will try to go with that same game plan of running the ball and controlling the clock. But I think the Chiefs are just going to kind of jump out on them, and they might look up and they're down, two scores or down 17 points or so, and they'll have to kind of throw the ball a little bit. And yeah, I see the Chiefs winning, and I might take the points actually, but I'm definitely taking Kansas City. Last game of the week, Monday night, Baltimore Ravens at the New Orleans Saints. Baltimore's 3-point favorites in this game. Who you got?
I'm going to take Baltimore. Lamar Jackson's going to be the difference. He's going to have that one big run and make that one big play to ultimately win the game. It'll be a tough game. The Saints will be scrappy, but I'm gonna go ahead and I'll take the Ravens and take the points. I think three points is about what it should be. So and they'll have Roquan Smith in the fold, so they'll be able to slow some things down. Yeah,
I'm with you. I'm gonna take Baltimore as well. They're the better team. I'm with you. I do think this will be a little bit of a tougher game, but I'm going to take Baltimore as well. I think Lamar Jackson makes a play or two that only he can make, and they pull this thing out. And I think Roquan Smith is going to show why they got him. I think he's going to go out there and have 12, 13 tackles, maybe get a pick or something. He's going to show why they got him. He'll have a great game. So, yeah, I'm going Baltimore as well. And just like that, those are our Week 9 predictions. Another phenomenal episode. This is a great time in sports right now. That trade deadline was crazy. You know what I'm saying? And then the stuff with the Nets. Today was just a crazy day altogether in sports, and it was right on time for us to jump into all of it.
It was.
I want to say real quick though, before we get into all our particulars at the end, I just want to say real quick, rest in peace to rapper Takeoff. 1/3 of the Migos. Unfortunately, he lost his life to some gun violence in the early hours of the morning today. And I just want to say, rest in peace to him, and peace and blessings and love and prayers to all of his loved ones, his family members, his close friends. Praying for Quavo and Offset. It's got to be crazy when you go through the mud with a person and you all on the grind, and then all of a sudden all three of you guys come together. And although over the past maybe year or so it's kind of waned apart, but to see someone that you've been through the mud with, and you all see such success and reach such heights together, and then in an instant they're gone, despite whatever the circumstances are, it's just crazy, man. My wife had shot me a text this morning and said he was killed, and I'm like, what? It was crazy, really shocking. But I just wanted to say that, man. I just wanted to say rest in peace to him, and prayers to his family and everything, because life is short, man. And guys, just be careful out here, man. You just never know. Just be careful, guys. Sometimes the bigger man walks away.
Yeah.
Pride does come before the fall, and I know as pride, we as men, we're big on pride, and we're big on respect, and I don't know. I mean, I it's stuff like that just makes me think, maybe I need to be careful, way more careful in my own instances, because life is too short. You never know what could happen. You never know what's going on around you. You could be here today, and a stray bullet comes, and you're gone tonight. And I got people that depend on me. So, yeah, man, just be careful, but rest in peace to him.
Yeah, rest in peace to that guy. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, it's been a wild day. Even I've been outside of sports. I seen it this morning going into work. Uh, but yeah, a lot of crazy stuff. We're nearing the end of 2022. Obviously, basketball season's heating up. Football season's at the midway point. Hockey season's getting started. I'm becoming a hockey fan. And then the World Cup
You
is
got your
starting
World Cup coming up. Yeah.
November 20th.
World
So I look
Series. I think are they
with
playing
game
tonight?
three.
Because I
I
know
think they are.
they
Yeah,
canceled it yesterday. I think game 3 is going on right now. So
yeah. So
a lot going on, man. But
yeah.
as always,
Oh, the
we'll be
Phillies are
right
up.
back.
Ooh.
Hey,
7-0, top of the 8th. Yikes.
as much as I want to see Dusty Baker, manager of the Houston Astros, as much as I want to see him finally get a ring, part of me wants to see Bryce Harper get one too, because
Yeah.
he's quietly been the top 2 or 3 player in this league pretty much since he's got in the league. And the Nats won one as soon as they gave him up, and so I'd be content either way.
Yeah.
But as
So
always, every Tuesday we right here 7:30 p.m. Central Time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time. We'll be right here. Rooted in Sports Community every Saturday,
12 p.m.
12
Pacific Time.
Pacific, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. Follow us on Instagram, just at Rooted in Sports. Simply, you'll see our little emblem and everything. Follow us or like and subscribe to us on YouTube. At Rooted in Sports. Once again, you'll see the link and everything. All of our episodes are there, so go back and check out some of the previous episodes and everything. And yeah, man, we just gonna keep on chugging along.
100%, man. So we got some good stuff coming.
No doubt, no doubt. Feel free to follow both of us on Instagram individually as well. I Swan _0623. And then what's your Instagram handle?
Tiberius 519.
And there it is, ladies and gents.
So yeah.
You got anything, Kenny?
Nah, man, it's been a pleasure. Everyone knows I'm working on a rebrand with the Break Room Breakdown. So just stay tuned for that. After that, just every Tuesday, we appreciate those that came on and chimed in. And we'll catch you guys next Tuesday.
Words. Till next time, much love. God bless.
Mm-hmm.
Catch y'all later.